Go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Monday evening. And you know what Monday evening means? Monday means it is time for Jawin with Jack. And I'm the Jack you're looking for. With me tonight, I have the two-time world champion Tarrasque hunter, ScythianBBQ. Sid, welcome to the show, sir. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So you've seen a couple of shows yourself, so you know the place I like to start is how did you get started in the role-playing game hobby? Like when was it? What was it? What was the experience like for you?
So I started pretty young, in the early '90s, and it was kind of towards the end of the Satanic Panic, I guess. But my dad was big into role-playing games, not tabletop so much, but just in general. And so one of the conditions he gave me was that I wasn't allowed to play anyone that uses magic. So I played a barbarian character.
Okay.
But I was really young, didn't really know what I was doing. I just committed to the bit and rolled what they told me to roll and had a good time. Some years later, when I was in, I think, the sixth grade, one of my friends, his family owned a gaming store. And so that kind of became the hangout, and I got exposed to Magic the Gathering and Warhammer and plenty of D&D then. I remember we were riding the bus one day, and he was working on a character sheet, and I asked him what he was doing, and he showed it to me, and he had a halfling who rode on a war elephant. And I thought, okay, that's super cool. Didn't even know it was the game I had played a few years earlier.
Love it.
Then played on and off throughout high school. Then fell out of tabletop games and got pretty heavily into computer games up until the fallout of Gamergate. And I realized at some point that just no good games were coming out anymore, or at least they're few and far in between. And I kind of talked to my brother and some of my friends. I was like, hey, why don't we just make our own game? And I went to my brother and showed up to where he lived, and I was like, hey, do you want to DM a game for me and some of my coworkers? And he's like, yeah, sure. I'm like, cool, we're leaving now. And so we had the starter set for 5th edition, and it was about a 45-minute drive to where we were meeting. And he just had to like figure it out on the drive there. And it was a phenomenal game. And that's what kind of started my local group going. And, that was back in, I think, 2017.
Nice.
And we're
nice. And so you guys just figured it out on the fly. In terms of serious play, you've been at it for about 8 years now since that resurgence.
Absolutely.
Wow. So what has it been like since you've been back in the hobby?
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a great excuse for my friends and I to get together. And then, also whenever there's a new coworker or somebody that we meet at a birthday party for whatever reason, we have a game because D&D comes up. And I'm like, well, we actually have a long-term game. You're welcome to come by. And so people will come in, and sometimes they stay. Sometimes they do 1 or 2 rounds. Oftentimes, though, because the table will grow to a point where it becomes a little bit untenable, either from scheduling conflicts or just having a lot of people at the same time, and then it'll sort of bud off and create its own new gaming group. So we've got a few tables that have spawned in the area just from that initial spur of the moment.
Yeah, sort of hiving off of the original game.
Yeah.
That's good. I think everybody wishes that would happen, but they would have enough staying power to not only keep their campaign going, but to have other games spin off of it and get started in other places. And so now you're still a 5th edition player exclusively? Do you play other games? Are you in other genres, other editions of D&D?
So we are not 5th edition exclusively. My main table, at this point, everybody DMs something. Typically, they all bring in their own game. We play test a lot of stuff that's in development. Earlier this year,
Cool.
we started play testing Mike Merle's Odyssey system. We're all playing Tiny D10 for next year.
Yeah, Tiny D10.
We've already got copies. It's just a matter of after the new year, that's when we plan to start a new campaign with Tiny D10. One guy runs like a Pokemon RPG, another guy runs a Star Wars RPG.
Okay.
There's a homebrew setting that's based on 5th edition, but heavily modified that we play. So, and then a lot of times we'll just do one shots of a different system.
Tiny D10 in the house.
Oh yeah, I'm excited about it.
And now, sounds like, are you still in the fantasy realm? Have you guys delved into other genres? You got some sci-fi and horror going on, or anything of that ilk?
Yeah, so there's the Star Wars game that's ongoing. That's it's more space fantasy than sci-fi. And then we've experimented with some sci-fi games. In particular, 5 Parsecs from Home. We more or less turned that into an RPG.
So I was under the impression that that was more of a campaign board game, almost a war game experience. But it feels like it has the elements of role play in it already.
Yeah, it is a campaign skirmish game, but adding role play elements to it is almost effortless. It's a phenomenal system, and it heavily influenced a game that we're actually making ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's not sci-fi, but a lot of the mechanics that we learned from that we've adopted, and stuff from 5th edition and stuff from all these different systems that we've been playing over the years. And the name of that is Molotovs and Mojitos.
Molotovs and Mojitos. I feel like that begs questions. So where does that come from? Eminem.
So, we're making an RPG game, and you got to stick with the letter and letter.
Given.
Molotovs and Mojitos is based on spy shows and movies, primarily from the late 90s and early 2000s. That's the early 2000s is the setting of the game. So it's things like Burn Notice, or less of the far out stuff, like, say, Mission Impossible, but some of that stuff is definitely in there, and it's trying to recreate the sensation of being in one of those action spy worlds.
Okay. And I'm familiar with Burn Notice. I haven't watched a lot of it myself, just caught a few episodes here and there over the years. And I'm trying to think of other shows that are in that category. But most of the old ones that I think of, because I'm a little on the old side myself, most of the old ones I think of fall into that outlandish category. Like you just mentioned, Mission Impossible. You got Maxwell Smart, which sounds a little bit further out than what you're talking about. Well, maybe closer to the Mission Impossible movies, because they're much more serious in tone than the show, from what I remember.
Yeah, it's closer to the Mission Impossible movies in tone. Miami Vice is a huge influence on the game as well.
Oh, okay. That's good.
But setting-wise, Burn Notice is probably the biggest influence.
Awesome. God, I wonder how hard it would be to secure the rights to that name and release the official RPG for it.
Oh, I have no idea. That sounds like a nightmare.
But you never know. I mean, imagine that, just seeing that on the shelf one day, you're walking through your local game store and you see Burn Notice, the RPG. What? Wait, they did what? I kind of did that when I saw Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the RPG on the shelf. I was like, I like the show, but I don't know if a RPG was warranted.
Well, I think it was Morkbork was a small indie game that came out and did really well, and it
Yeah.
did so well that now they've got a lot of big IPs.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That is true. And it's interesting. I nobody really talks about how great Morborg or however it is properly pronounced. Pardon my Swedish is terrible.
I always like the Swedish chef from the Muppets, so Morkbork.
The Morky Borgy. Yeah, but yeah, that's hysterical that that was such a huge phenomenon, but it really is it was about the book itself being a work of art, right? More so than a great game. So it's amazing that it's inspired so much adoption, like you just pointed out. I know I've seen so much uh, um, materials based off that related to it going through the feed. It was as prevalent as Shadow Dark there for a little while.
Oh yeah, and I've tested some of their games, and they are really good. Like the dice pool system they work is smooth, and it had an influence on Molotovs and Mojitos as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have a different resolution mechanic, but it was influenced, especially in the early stages of the game, by board.
Do you consider it more of a rules light game or a crunchy game?
It is a sim light game.
Sim light. Okay.
So it is.
Follow, in the similar way that Trevor Duvall means it for the Burning Empire.
Yes, it's so
Got it.
very different mechanics. What he's doing, like the D100 blackjack roll high but roll under system, which is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved in backing that. Maybe one day I'll financially recover from it, but
Me too. I'm high up on that list. I'm waiting patiently, as long as it takes, man. As long as it
yeah,
takes.
I'm very excited about it. And then, but yeah, he had a huge influence on it and on like the design philosophy. Uh, Alexander Marquis,
McCree.
Macris, sorry, Alexander
Mm.
Macris.
Yep. Yep.
He also his Arbiter of Worlds, the philosophy of gaming that had an influence on the design philosophy more so than the mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
But the game is fast, character creation's quick, the resolution is fast, but it's very in depth. And because the setting is so recent, as we build these rules out, like we go and get the pricing for these facsimiles of real world weapons and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can go back and research prices for stuff.
Yeah, which one of the surprising things to us whenever we were working on it was that back in the late '90s, hand grenades cost $50.
That is a useless bit of information that I'm glad to know.
Well, it's very useful in the game because
Yeah. Yeah. Because, because I every time I play a game, I think, where are the grenades? I need grenades. I must have grenades. If it's a modern setting, I got to have grenades.
absolutely, and grenades are just absolutely overpowered, and we have steered towards simulation more than balance. So, yeah, I mean, grenades, as long as it goes well for you, because it can be thrown back or you can mess up your throw and it could end up killing yourself with it. But if you do well, it ends a lot of conflict really quickly.
As grenades are known to do. I think
Yes.
that I'm no expert, but I do think that is true to life. I'm no expert on such things. Oh, Scudder for Mike, good morning to you, sir. And have yourself a good day going off to work. Don't let those kids give you too much trouble. Spoiled little brats. And we got Tag. I hope we're keeping you company on the ride, Tag. One of the most surprising things to me I learned in ye old army is that grenades are quite a bit louder than I expected. All done. Come here.
Oh, and we definitely put that in the game too. If you're trying to do anything without attracting the attention of the law and you use a grenade, that's gone. Like they're bond.
Now throw the pin. And yes, you are correct. That is Mac the German Shepherd. Oh, all right. Come here. The real star of the show. Hey, Mac. Come here. Come here. I get dog points. I get dog points. Hey, come here, buddy. Yo, give us kisses. Give us kisses. Oh, yeah. Who's a happy boy? Who's a happy boy? Okay. Lay down now. No, you got to chill. You got to chill. All right. Thank you for that sanctioned puppy break. Lay down. Excuse me. Oh, yeah, yeah. He feels like two at moments. No, you must lay down. Now, pardon me for the distraction, Sid. What we have to do is get on to the meat of what everyone wants to hear about, which is what is it like to be a world champion at Dungeons and Dragons? Because I got to tell you, I want that. I want that real bad.
It feels pretty good. So I didn't join the IFRPG on purpose. The way that recruitment works is you'll be playing in a game and you won't know in most cases that it's an IFRPG dungeon master. And then if you do really well, you'll be in. It's not a secret society. It is a private organization.
Okay.
There's no like secret rituals or anything like that. It's just we value the privacy of the individuals, and it allows us to game in ways that have been banned at most conventions. But so I was playing in a game. I did pretty well. I got invited to amateur qualifier. I went through the qualifiers, nationals championship, and the championship is the Miss Tarrasque, and it felt really nice. Went in with a game plan. There was another guy from my home table that was there, so we were able to kind of scheme together, and we tagged it. But I got lucky in that I delivered the killing blow, and the condition of that tournament was whoever delivers the killing blow is the champion.
Wow. So that was the official win condition, and you nailed it by virtue of that. Wow. So that could have gone any way, really, to anybody who was still in the fight. How many people were still in the fight by that point?
So there was a barbarian who was still in the stomach. He was just like unable to deal enough damage to get out. There was a fighter who was doing okay, and then masters weren't very effective for the most part of the fight, and because it's a Tarrasque and it's super resistant to everything. And it wasn't just a normal Tarrasque; it was a super Tarrasque. So the dungeon master had made modifications to the Tarrasque that were secret to all the players. So we didn't know going in that he had regeneration, and a lot of it. I think he was recovering something like 70 hit points a round. And then he also had a burrow speed. So when things started going bad for the Tarrasque, he started burrowing down, and that changed the whole dynamic of the fight. Most of the squishy guys were too far away to make the distance and chase them down into the burrows. But me and my table mate, we were frontliners, and we found, within the conditions and setup of what you could pick for magic items and so on and so forth, we both had a flying speed. So we were able to fly down into the tunnels and chase the Tarrasque, and that's why we were the ones to finish them off.
Okay.
But now, because of the regeneration, it wasn't dead. So I shouldn't say the killing blow, but whoever reduces it to 0 hit points becomes the champion. There was still the follow-up of this Tarrasque was going to come back alive, or pop back up after X amount of rounds, and so we had to end up one of the casters banishing it to another realm.
Mm-hmm.
And then that
Yes.
sets up for the next Mr. Tarrasque.
And that's the world where all of that is happening. Now, okay, so as the people are interested and they want to know, how does the tournament circuit actually work? Apparently, if you just are in the right place at the right time, you get stealth recruited?
Yeah, you'll get an invitation to a qualifier. So the
And
qualifier,
these are held at other conventions?
yeah, so it can happen at conventions. Anyone who has a pro card is able to invite someone to an amateur qualifier. Or
Okay.
you be in a game and not know it's a qualifier, but you're not. Most people wouldn't sign up for a qualifier at a convention unless they were pretty confident in their abilities, because the qualifier it's 12 lightning rounds where you have to randomly roll race and class, and you get 5 minutes to do your build, and then you do an encounter, and it could be an ambush, it could be an attack, it could be dealing with traps. So it runs a whole gambit of different things that you would do in Dungeons and Dragons, and you don't know what counter is until that 5 minutes is up. So you're trying to hedge your bets and make a really well-rounded character, but you're also randomly getting a race in class.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you'll be lucky and you'll roll a Goliath barbarian and it's just a straight up fight, and you're like, okay, cool, I got this. In other cases, you might be really disadvantaged for the scenario based on your race and class, but that's where the player skill comes in, and that's what they're really testing for in the qualifiers, is problem solving and quick thinking. That the qualifiers also strictly enforce the 30-second turn limits, so it goes by fast to get through all 12 scenarios within a 4-hour period. And if you do well, you get invited to the regionals, which is heavy role playing. The regionals, there's a story involved, but the like climax of it is you're trying to take a castle from a group of superior numbers. If you manage to take the castle, you have 1 week of game time to prepare to defend the castle from another group of superior numbers. And so you're attacking and defending, and you're outnumbered in both cases. And then the teams that can survive that move on to nationals, and the nationals are a mega dungeon crawl. But again, because of the strict time limits and whatnot, you're like trying to clear rooms really quickly. You're trying to disarm traps. And then the people who score the best at nationals get invited to the championship to face off against the Tarrasque.
Okay. Now, tell me more about the organization. Hey, Crafty Matt, I want to say hello real quick. Glad to see you, sir. I'm happy to have you here. Get comfortable. Let us know what you think. All right. So, again, I want to hear about the organization, the IFRPG. What does that even stand for?
International Federation of Role Play Games.
Okay. Okay. When was it formed? How old is it? What can you tell us about the organization and how it operates?
It used to be under a different name, but they changed it to the IFRPG in 2017. And that was in response to the RPGA and Adventures League no longer holding the D&D championships. So for decades, the championships were held first by TSR, then by WotC at Gen Con every year. But with 5th edition, they got rid of the RPGA. I'm sorry, they got rid of the RPGA and switched to Adventure League. And they did like 1 year of the championship with Adventure League and then just stopped. And they brought it back a couple years later at like a UK game convention, and then they did away with it. So in 2017, this gaming league renamed to the IFRPG, and it was in honor of both the RPGA and its predecessor, the International Federation of Wargamers, the IFW that Gygax was in before Gen Con even started up. And you can be a solo person, go through the qualifiers and so on and so forth, and work your way up through conventions to get to the Mr. Tarrasque. That's the biggest competition in the RPGA. The IFRPG. But then we also have other divisions that focus on other aspects and other games. So there are other championships, but the Mr. Tarrasque is the biggest gonzo, anything goes because you're fighting this impossible foe scenario.
Now, you might be noticing there's some skepticism going on in the chat about the nature of the organization. Why the clandestine nature of it? Why is that necessary?
There are a lot of subject matters that have traditionally been covered in RPGs, whether it's slavery or some sort of violence or abuse and so on and so forth. And those things have fallen out of vogue in the RPG community at large. A lot of conventions, all the big conventions that I can think of, have mandatory safety tools where you have to put out like, this is what we're planning on doing. And then people who sign up for the games have the ability to say, no, you can't have giant spiders because I'm scared of spiders.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, and
not because I'm inconsiderate to people and their foibles and limitations, but because I think we need to draw a line at allowing them to inflict that on the world at large.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if no one's going to force you to play a spider game if you're scared of spiders, no one's going to force you to play a game with domestic abuse if you have some sort of history with domestic abuse and it's bad for you. But because of the safety rules, anybody, whether they have those experiences or not, can say, I don't like it, you have to change your game. And if you don't agree to that, you get banned from conventions. Since conventions are one of the best ways for the gaming groups to get together, because like I said, the IFRPG used to be something different. And part of the rebranding was A, Wizards dropping the championships every year, and then B, a response to safety tools. And so a rebranding allowed them to switch into this like incognito method of gaming. So they don't announce this is an IFRPG game. It's just within the internal chats, someone says, hey, I'm going to, let's say, Gen Con. I'm running this game. You guys should sign up. And so you can go to a convention, enjoy the convention as it is, and then also go and do an IFRPG game, but it's not labeled as such. That way it can't get banned.
Now, I do follow that reasoning to a degree. However, if it's really a matter of the subject matter, isn't that going to be found out and banned anyway?
No,
vis-a-vis like, if they don't like the slavery or the spiders or what have you. I'm sorry if I'm being a little obtuse on this.
So because of the qualifiers, not only does it test for players' skill, but you're also getting a feel for the person. and finding out if they're going to be someone who is going to be really, to use their own words, problematic to the gaming table. So maybe they have a lot of player skill and they're doing well in the qualifiers, but they're complaining about this, that, or the other, or they're trying to use safety tools during the qualifier. You're like, okay, that's not a good fit for the IFRPG. So that person will not be invited to regionals. And then that's also why we keep the role play elements to a minimum until regionals, because now you've our vetting process to where only people showing up at the table are people that you're confident will not be enforcing safety tools or reporting you and so on and so forth. One of the other qualifiers for regionals, it was everyone was a drow. That was the scenario, and the win condition was so it's table versus table at that level. To win the scenario, you had to kidnap 100 people from the surface and successfully bring them back to the Underdark to work on building a statue. So you're working as a group to kidnap these 100 people, and then whichever single player kidnaps the most people is the winner. So there's your evil, there's slavery, there's, all the drow culture that goes into it with the role-playing aspect of it, and you're backstabbing each other because you're drow, and that's what you do. It's not enough that as a group...
It's kind of built into it.
Yeah. So you have to, before you can play that game, if you have a home game, you already know these people, you can play that game. But at a convention, I don't know everybody in the IFRPG, but I know that they've already been vetted, so I can show up and play this game with them and not worry about buzzing a kerfluffle down the road.
Have people involved in the organization had experience with that? Have they been banned from events? Is this a defensive maneuver on their part? It sounds like that was a problem for a while.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, no one from the IF has been banned, but there were people banned for refusing to use safety tools. And so as a preemptive measure, they made that change. And that happened before I joined the organization.
And now, did you say you've been playing back in 5th edition D&D since 2017 or so? Have you been involved with the IFRPG that long?
I think I got into the IFRPG in 2002. Maybe it was late 2021. No, sorry, it's 2020. Yeah, I got into the IFRPG in 2020. So I'd been gaming for 3 years already before I showed up to that convention and then was invited to go through the qualifiers.
All right. Is there anything that people who are curious can do to learn more about the organization or get exposed to it somehow? Be at the right, do they even have some sort of an idea of what tournaments they're going to be at or what conventions they're going to host events at?
So the IFRPG tends to have a presence at the bigger conventions. And if you know what to look for, you can kind of it's not going to be a game that says easy on it. Like, it's going to warn you this is a hard game. And if it describes the, lightning rounds, this, that, and the other, random character generation, that's something to look for as far as trying to get into it more organically. And initially, they wanted to grow slow. So that's why they took that approach. But now some of the kinks in the organization have been worked out. They feel like they can expand a little bit faster. And so we're offering outreach games. So if you really want to do it and you're being sincere about it, you can just direct message someone who is in the IFRPG, ask them for a game, and they'll run you through it. And if you do well, that person who, like I said, all pros can invite you to an amateur tournament. They'll say, okay, I think you might be a good fit. Here's an amateur tournament happening in your area. And so you can come to the tournament, sign up, and participate that way.
Okay. Okay. So if I could say hypothetically behind the scenes message you and say I'd be interested and could tell me where I might go and or where I might be recruited for an event.
Yeah, and we've had an
So
open invitation for most of the bros for almost a year now. None of them have taken us up on it because I think Crafty Matt doesn't. A lot of the bros say it's not real. I'm like, hey, if you don't believe it's real, come try it. If you can pass these scenarios, if you can score well enough, and the scoring's not secret on the qualifiers. If you can score a passing grade, then you'll get an invitation to a tournament at a convention near you. But most of the people who doubt it, A, don't go to conventions, and B, none of them have ever taken us up on the offer. It is a freestanding offer. Anyone can DM me or any of the other pros and ask for a chance, and they'll be given that chance.
Well, Crafty Matt is maintaining that he took you up on it and you turned him down. Did you feel that was not a good faith response?
Crafty Matt is not telling the truth. He did not take me up on it. He wanted me to release financial statements and such forth about the IFRPG, which I don't have access to. I'm not the head of the IFRPG. I'm just one of the champions.
Well, it seems like most of the skepticism is grounded in the secrecy, right? So without names, faces that can stand by this or some sort of organizational presence. Like I understand the clandestine nature and the privacy wanted by the anonymity, but you can also see where that is a double-edged sword and makes it hard to take the organization seriously.
I'm not really worried about what the detractors say about it being serious or not, because I already know that we're at these conventions, we're having these games, we're fostering the best players in the world because I'm playing against them all over the country. So if people on Twitter are like, oh, it's not real, I'm like, well, why don't you go to a convention and find out? They don't do it. So it just doesn't really bother me what a bunch of people online who mostly don't even play think about it. The IFRPG isn't ever meant to be a massive organization that's got thousands and thousands of players like the RPGA was. The RPGA, you played your dues, you got your magazine subscription, you were in it and you could compete. The IFRPG only wants the best people, so they want you to prove yourself first. And then you can compete and rise to the rank and get the championship.
And now, and so that's the point I think is being driven home is that without a public face to the organization, the claims and the trophy itself don't really carry the weight that they should.
And there's still an open invitation for them to try. So that's my only response. Like if they don't believe it, they can try it. And then they can have an opinion. But until they actually try, there's not a whole lot to give credit to what they're saying.
So, and so how do they recruit? Dan, we were covering that earlier. What they do is they keep an eye out for people playing at tournaments, playing at conventions who they think show promise and who they think have what the stuff what it takes. So that's when they get invited to events. Did I get that more or less correct, Sid?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there are phenomenal players out there who have never heard of the IFRPG and would do great if they joined it. We just haven't found them yet.
Mm-hmm. So how is that something that you as a pro do when you're going to conventions now, is you're looking around for potential people, or do you not want to recruit people because you don't want the competition?
Oh no, I want to recruit people. Like, if I'm going to claim to be one of the best in the world, I can't be. I have to welcome the competition. And I will say, the now, way better than whenever I won my first championship. And it's
Now,
because we have
I do recall that you put out a post saying that the org was officially staying with 2014. I was going to ask what your opinion on the 2024 updates were, and I imagine that it's not such a positive feedback since the organization decided not to go with those rule books.
So I'm not going to pretend to be a 2024 expert. I know your guest last week is a huge 24 fan, and although I agree with a lot of keeping D&D alive and for the next generation and so on, it's okay to skip a bad edition, right? We're good, because that's just going to reward more missions. Wizards has a tendency, and before them even TSR, they'll pump out something good, it gets people's attention, then they start putting out some stinkers, people don't buy them, then they take design seriously again, they hire the right people to make good games, they put out something good, then they ride the coattails of that, put out some stinkers. It's just the cycle that D&D has gone through for 50 years. And I don't think that it's a good idea to reward 2024. I run a 2024 game because someone from church, their kid wanted to play D&D. They bought the books. They didn't know how to play. They knew that I was into it. And so I said, yeah, I'll run a game for you. And so we've been running a small campaign like every 2 weeks, 4 hours, nothing crazy. It's hard to run the 2024 books. I find myself having to go back to the 2014 books for resources as a DM. The player handbook is fine, the way it outlines things. I'm not a fan of the changes they made, but there's nothing mechanically wrong with that. But when I'm like, okay, you find a dungeon, because I rolled on a random table and it said you found a dungeon. All right, let me go to the appendix to build a dungeon. It's not there. They don't have a random dungeon creator. So now I'm opening up my 2014 book to use that. And there were lots of instances of just a tool that I was used to having in 2014 not being in 2024.
Excuse me 1 minute. I have a doorbell ringing.
Okay.
Pardon me. It was a slight interruption. We have some groceries. Yes, I'm surprised if I end up hearing yours, then he's gonna go crazy too. And Crossface, glad to have you here, sir, man. Glad to see you in the chat. All right, begging your pardon, Sid. Where were we?
We were discussing 2024 and 2014. So just from running the game.
You were saying that the player's handbook appears to be fine. It's internally consistent, but the Dungeon Master's Guide in particular was really lacking.
Yeah. And at my home game, we, like I established earlier, we're really big into trying things out. One of the guys who runs his own table as well, his home table wanted to run the 2024 rules, so he started running them in our game to get a feel for it first. And it's fine. You can play a 2024 character in a 2014 campaign. There's a little bit of a power bump, but not much. So that part seems fine, but when it comes to actually running the game by the book's just not good.
Yeah, I have skimmed them but not read them in depth, and I'm kind of in the same. I've said this before. I like them. You know, I don't actively hate them or anything. I like others, but I just don't love them. And I kind of felt the same about fifth edition. I'm like, oh, I like it. This is interesting. I'd be interested in trying it out, but I just never got around to joining a group over those years.
And
So
that's totally valid. Like I've never been talking to someone about an edition, and I say, well, why don't you like fifth edition? And they go, oh, it's just not for me. I'm like, no, you're wrong. No, it's just not for them. Now, if they say, oh, because it's too easy, I'm like, well, you're wrong on that, and I'll show you the math. So if they give me a point like that, then I'll argue it. But if it's just not their cup of tea, then it's just not their cup of tea. And I hope that they're enjoying the game that they are playing, whatever it may be.
right, yeah, like my tastes range more towards the traditional classical style, more like first or second edition. So around the edition time, I went with Castles and Crusades instead, and that kind of that's my favorite to this day. But there's many things I do like about the newer editions. I think that they are a step in the right direction. Like I would consider fifth edition to be superior to third edition, at least from an outsider with minimal experience. Because third edition, in my opinion, was great for players, but it was a nightmare to dungeon master.
And
Go ahead.
I only experienced third edition as a player, and I
Mhm.
loved it. There were some parts of that that I wish would have survived into fifth edition, but I never ran a game in third edition, so I can't speak to that aspect of it. But I believe it. I believe with the crazy way the feats work, and there's 6 different conditions, but only one of them applies as a bonus, and then this, that, and the other. It does look like a nightmare. And that was part of the marketing behind 4E was like, hey, are you tired of all this math?
Paladin, good to see you, sir. And yeah, Crossface is in that club with us. 2014 5e is very underrated and suffered from YouTube ambassadors being unsufferable. I wonder if he has anybody in particular in mind. But yeah, I feel like 5e was a solid contender and would definitely rate it higher than 3e. It seems easier to dungeon master for sure. And even in my little experiments, like with doing some solo with a first level character, I found that the XP budgets create pretty decent encounters for a single character. So those parts still work, but like you said, if you need a random dungeon, there's, I almost feel like there were many things like that intentionally left out of the books because they want to make a modular. They want to release a whole book about with random tables or something like that later on down the road. I don't know if that's off base or if they more intend to really move everything to an online subscription experience.
I think that you are right on base with that, that they want you to be playing their campaign, their published campaigns, so they're not really giving you random dungeons. There's some dungeon maps, but they're really small, and it's like, what am I going to do? Run the same handful of dungeons over and over again forever? Like, no, you're going to buy another book. Also, it's a little bit confusing about the implied setting, right? It comes with this really nice map of Greyhawk, but then nothing about Greyhawk in the book. And they have an entire appendix on Forgotten Realms characters.
Right. Yeah. They're like, yeah, all these known people and lore stuff of the Forgotten Realms.
Like, okay, so you're telling me all this information about the Forgotten Realms, but then you give me a map of Greyhawk. And one of the first books they've released after the core books is the Heroes of Faerun, or whatever it is. And I was like, oh, okay, you put that in there to try to encourage us to buy the next book.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I gotta have the Drizzt stats and stuff. I gotta have Drizzt. So, do you have a particular favorite campaign setting from over the years? Do you like to jump around to various ones? Is it homebrew for you?
So my favorite campaign settings are definitely homebrew. I have
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed some of the 5e published campaigns. much. I see Chubby Funster chat will probably tear me apart if I go into it too much. Great. I thought Rime and the Frost Maiden was great. I really like those campaigns. And I even think that the old Mines starter set was phenomenal, because that's what I started 5th edition with. And I was like, yeah, that was a good introductory adventure. It took a few sessions to hash everything out, and then there's a good launching point into another campaign, whether you're doing a homebrew or buying another book to continue your characters with.
Right, right. I've heard so many good things about Phandelver over the years. And that is what you meant by Mines?
Yes. And I haven't played the new like extended campaign, some things like Obelisk or something like that.
Okay.
I kind of checked out of WotC published stuff at that point, and it wasn't because their published stuff isn't good. It's just because I was getting into all these indie games, and that was taking up my non-main campaign time, and my non-competition time was trying out other systems and seeing what else there was in the RPG world.
Right, right. What did you find? What are the gems?
Trevor Duvall's channel, phenomenal. That was like a great thing. He'd show a game, and then I would start playing my own game in parallel to that to get experience with it. So huge fan of well, now I'm blanking on it, from the Savage Worlds. There we go.
Oh yes.
Savage Worlds introduced a lot of cool concepts to me, and then just everything he's done. I've also done that system to experience it on another level. And then after that, came back to the 5e DMG, and I couldn't believe how much was in there that I had missed. Like a lot of things like, oh, this is a really cool thing from this system, and then I'll find it, oh, that's already in the 5e DMG as an option.
Wow. Okay.
But whenever I first started playing, I didn't read the DM tools section much at all, because that's like, oh, those are optional rules. Then I go and read them, like, oh, these are most of the things I found in other games I really love are already here.
Right. They're just not, they're, like you said, listed as optional. And I find it kind of funny too, because it was a meme just a few years ago where Ginny D said, oh, after 10 years, I finally got around to reading the DMG. Right. So that was a bit of a thing. And it's amazing that even if you have read it, there are things that you kind of passed over the first time through. It does pay to the shout out to Crossface, learn book control.
Oh, absolutely.
Learn your book, be familiar with it, be familiar with your rule set. There's a lot to be said for that at the table, because without those components, you can't have the speed that I've heard you mention several times in talking about the competitive play.
Oh yeah, rules mastery is a big part of competitive play. With that 30-second turn limit, if you don't know what you're going to do, and it's not just like announce your action in 30 seconds. It's say what you're going to do your actions, movements, resolutions, so attacks, damage, all of it, 30 seconds. At the end of 30 seconds, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
So it keeps the pace up, and it does a lot for the like the immersion of the game too, because you're not like, oh, let me scroll through this character sheet for 2 minutes looking for a spell that I think might work well. It's like, no, like you have, in game a 6-second turn. We're being generous and giving you 30 seconds because let's be realistic. But like, you've got to make these on the fly decisions because you're in the middle of a fight, and it should feel like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and I really see that. I do stress pacing like that when I'm at my game. I'm usually not playing a super crunchy game, but man, that I've found that stressing that adds even a sense of urgency to the players and the game itself. All right. Dunder says good night and good luck on Mr. Tarrasque 2026.
And I'm sorry I'm not keeping up with the chat, but someone asked if we use the flanking rules. yes, 100%. You should be using the flanking rules. They're great. They enhance battle. And you should be doing your morale rolls.
Yeah, morale. So many of the bros actually swear by morale, and I agree with that sentiment. It's something that really defines the game and adds something. If you don't use that, you end up in so many situations where it's the DM is just these goblins run away maybe before they should, or they're always going to stay and die, fight to the bitter end, something like that. I like the random element that even the DM doesn't know when they're going to break and run.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's we have an R&D game that we run internally with the IFRPG where there's a pre-written campaign that we're all playing through, but we issue rules changes from time to time just to try things out. So this is not for competition. This is just seeing what rules changes we might make in the future and play testing them. And we've switched from the morale system in the book for 5e to a GM emulator for two reasons. It's a GM emulator that we've made internally, but it's heavily influenced by the Mythic GME, but just a little bit sped up. And we wanted to have a GME that was system agnostic, so not something that was only for 5e or whatever. And we wanted the morale system to also reflect that. So we just run the morale system through the GME, and it's like, is this guy going to run? And the GM will make an assessment based on the condition and what type of creature he is and so on and so forth. And then sometimes it's just like a really strong no. Like, nah, then this dude's never going to run. And so you come up with a narrative reasons like, oh, you just killed his brother, and so he's going to stay and fight on the beachhead till only he or you guys are still alive. And it's like, if you were just making your mind up, oh, the goblin's going to run away. Well, yeah, he clearly would have ran away because you just smoked 5 of his friends in the first round of combat. But no, now this is the hero goblin who's going to avenge his brethren.
Yeah. I can see that now. No, clatter. Oh, this goblin's on PCP. He's not going anywhere,
Yeah, and so, the GM gets to decide why he's doing that. Maybe is he on PCP, or maybe he's just too dumb to know that his friends are dead. And he's like, look at all the treasure I'm going to get by myself. And
right. Yeah. Oh, now that they're all dead, it's all mine. All I got to do is kill these pesky humans.
And to circle back to the 2024 and 2014, the reason why the RPG decided not to go, it wasn't just because the DMG was poorly written, because we already have tools to overcome that. It's instead of enhancing the game or expanding it in any way, they kind of rebooted it. So a lot of players have characters that are fairly high level, and they're using them in multi-year campaigns, and their classes and subclasses have like changed their mechanics or their names. The way feats would synergize with each other is gone. So it's like there was a certain game meta that was in place, and it's not even that the 2024 rules changed it, which we could live with. It's that they're like, okay, these classes aren't valid anymore. They didn't put the Artificer in the player's handbook, which it wasn't in the 2014 books, but it came out in Eberron. So like, this class has been with us for 8 years, and now you're just not going to publish it in the core rules.
That's when I'm sorry, I lean towards them. I think it's just my aesthetic taste, but I never got into Eberron, and Artificers feel artificial to me. They don't feel like they don't belong in the game yet. I guess it's my old school roots showing.
It depends on setting. So in the R&D setting, it's more like an Age of Sail time frame. So Artificers make more sense there because there's ship cannons, there's blunderbusses and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. If you're trying to do like an old school sword and sorcery, then a guy that makes a little like gear work owl doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yes, and that's more the difference, I guess. I can even see where I didn't even like that owl in the Clash of the Titans. But that's I can see where it fits the world because Eberron has almost, while still being magical, it's almost had an industrial revolution, large scale stuff going on.
Yeah, and to that point, you're only supposed to technically use Eberron classes and feats in an Eberron game. You're only technically supposed to use Strixhaven or Ravnica subclasses and feats in Strixhaven and Ravnica games. So something that a lot of GMs need to get better at is saying no. Just because
right. Well, see, though, I would go the other direction and say, well, then it makes sense that they're not in the core book.
Yeah, for those, yes. But I felt like, and this is me personally, we don't even have Artificers, anybody playing an Artificer in a serious campaign that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Because so many GMs say no to it. Like, no, I'm running a medieval setting. This doesn't really fit with what I'm going with. Or no, I'm running a Bronze Age setting. This doesn't really fit with what I'm going with. But it wasn't just the class. That was like the biggest piece that was missing from what had already been there. They backtracked a lot of rules that they had released with Xanathars and Tashas that now they're going to be reintroducing. They got rid of mattering at all. Everything's just a background. So you can be a halfling, and you can use a heavy weapon, like a heavy two-handed weapon, as long as you have a 13 in strength. That's still a +1. Like, I think you should need a lot more than a +1 to swing a hammer that weighs more than you do.
Yeah, that seems to be a tough spot to get. My experience has been the simplest rules are best. Like, the earliest rules just said halflings can't use two-handed weapons. Done. Right? It was that simple.
And I was fine with that.
Because in third edition, if you remember, I don't know if you recall, but they did size categories for weapons. So a small long sword and a medium short sword are two completely different things, and you're not proficient with if you're proficient with one, you're not proficient with the other. And I hated that. I hated that passionately. It's like, no, so that was one of the things about 3.5 that I just could not stomach. So I think even in basic 5th edition, from what I recall, handled that better. I didn't catch that in the newest rules, that it's just kind of blanket, halflings can swing great swords as long as they have a 13 strength.
If I remember correctly, small creatures were not allowed to use weapons that had the heavy property in 2014.
That seems familiar to me. Yes.
Now in 2024, as long as you have a 13 in strength, you're allowed to do it. And if I'm mistaken in that rule, I apologize, but that's what I remember whenever I was like comparing rule sets. I was like, well, that's silly. Like, you're 3.5 feet tall. You just simply can't use a 6 foot long sword.
Yeah. And maybe you can use a long sword or a broadsword, but that's going to be two-handed, Yeah. And I can see the logical sense in people saying that, well, but a human-sized sword, the haft is going to be too thick for a halfling to wrap their hands around or whatnot. So a halfling two-handed sword would be too thin for a human to wield properly. I don't know. It reminds me of the early editions where it's like, broadsword and longsword. Is there really a functional difference? Do you have to have proficiency in both? Right? Can't there just be a normal sword like in basic?
Oh, I just looked up the rule. If you were a small creature using a weapon with a heavy property, you had disadvantage on attack rolls. That's what it was.
Oh, So, not that you couldn't do it, it was just you're not going to bother trying because you're at such a disadvantage.
Yeah, it's heavily penalized.
Mm-hmm. And so, oh gosh, I was just thinking of something. Yeah, it'll come back to me. Now, Crafty Matt did ask if you can tell us when is the next tournament and where is it going to be held?
There's going to be a tournament next week in South Florida.
Okay. Do we have any other IFRPG members in the chat that can corroborate that one way or another? I don't know. I know that there's one or two other ones that over on the X app, but I am not remembering their names off the top of my head.
Yeah, Skalik is here. He's in the IFRPG.
Oh, thank you. Excellent. Okay. Good deal. Now, one of the things, I know what it was. The backgrounds giving the stat modifiers, I like in the 2024 ones, but I don't like that they removed it from the racial profiles as well. And I don't like that they removed the sub races. There were things, neat character builds I was able to do in 5th edition that I can't do in the new books because they removed the sub races. So that seems to be another one of those things they needlessly stripped away. I kind of think like if you kept the racial section from the 2014 books and used the introduced the backgrounds from the 2024. I like the idea that your background does affect your stats because, if you grew up being a blacksmith, you'd be stronger, right?
Yeah, and Flooded Realms is here. He's also an IFRPG pro.
Flooded Realm. Yeah, thank you, sir. Glad to have you.
Yeah, the background having a statistical impact makes sense. I do like that.
Yes.
I just don't like that it was like race is just how you look.
Agreed.
They stripped everything else from it. And although I like that you can get they call them origin feats in 2024. You can get a feat at first level. Well, you could do that in 2014. Anyways, if you were a variant human from the core 3, you got a feat at level 1. And then once Tasha came out, you could do custom origin and get a feat at level 1. So that was all game with the rules they had published.
Yeah.
But they limited the feats you could choose from. There's I think 5 or 6 of them for a first level feat. And the old backgrounds from 2014 were very flavorful, and they did have some low level impact.
Okay.
So, if you were a blacksmith in the background, just for instance, I'm not quoting the rules here, you would be proficient in blacksmith's tools, and you would be able to get a discounted price on buying armor or something like that in town. There was always something like that, or a certain background, you were always able to find a place to stay for free. And at low level, yeah, that's impactful. But then once you hit level 3, and certainly by level 5, they stop being that significant, which is nice because that's your background. That's in your past. That helped you out at the early levels. Now you're getting into the game, and what you're doing now is more important than what you did before you played.
Okay. I see the point there. And compared to the origin feats that I'm thinking of from 2024, for instance, they have all the backgrounds seem to have a feat like that tied to them, and most of them come with cantrips attached, it seems. So many of them have the magic initiate where you pick either wizard, druid, or cleric, and you end up grabbing some cantrips. So I rolled up a ranger, and I started out a first level character, and he had ranger spells, and because of he was human and took 2 origin feats, I also had wizard and druid spells to start with too. So it was a whole bunch of cantrips for a first level character.
Yeah, it's a little bit overkill
It
to get
seems,
two
yeah, it
feats.
seems a little excessive. Now, and that's I think one of the interesting but subtle changes was that for me, feats were optional in fifth edition, but they're built in core in the 2024 books. I take that to mean that most people used feats in fifth edition. Is that
I
been
have
your experience?
never played a 5e game without feats.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
It is
That's
the assumption feats.
okay. That's good. I thought it was really interesting, and it's really interesting to uh, contemplate that because when I was reading the fifth edition books and planning my first campaign, I thought I was thinking I was gonna, I'm gonna feats are optional. I'm gonna leave them out and stick with just the stat increases and see how that pans out. Because one of the philosophies that they introduced in fifth edition that I liked was you don't get a lot more new skills automatically. You can do that if you want to spend your options on that, like new feats or whatever, but you don't get more skills at every level or proficiencies. And that fits a lot closer to the kind of characters that we see in fiction. Aragorn and Gandalf are very close to the same characters. Even if they've gotten more powerful, their actual capabilities, broadly speaking, were the same from beginning to end. Gandalf didn't learn how to play a musical instrument over the course of his travels, as a for instance.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought the original CR system from 2014 was built around there not being feats in play and not being magic items in play. And so that's where a lot of the criticism of the old CR system comes from. It's like, well, everyone's got a magic item by level 3 because the rule books say that you should have a +1 weapon by level 3. And then one's taking a feat at level 4. And so it really kind of throws the balance off pretty early and makes CR less useful. Uh,
Oh,
Now, I think that they do account for that in the new XP budgeting of 2024.
that I
But
liked better. That was that reminds me of the similar approach they took in fourth edition, which is one of the parts of that edition that I liked. I thought the XP budget worked especially well, surprisingly, really well as a solo game, uh, if you could believe that. And my initial experiments in 24 have been similar. That if you stick with the XP budgets and then just very find creatures within those XP budgets, it handles um, varying numbers of characters much more accurately than the old CR systems that I'm used to. Nope. Well, looks like it's up to me to entertain you. Oh, Rumble Bros unite! All right, we're going to wait for him to come back. We've had a little interruption. So while we're waiting, Mudcore Division doesn't allow feats. It's one of the main differences. Oh. Okay, well, I'm going to need to learn more about this Mudcore stuff. And here he comes. Oh, wait a minute. Here he comes. Here he comes. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. He just likes to play hard to get.
sorry about that.
It happens. Yep, guest dropped. Everything's up. Oh, there we go. He went again. This is what happens when Mercury goes retrograde. We are so back. So back. Guys. So I ran a Calorath game yesterday, It was, and I ran it on Discord. I did throw a post on X about it, and it was I was more the host of the game. I was the host of the game, and I had people, a couple players join me. And what we did is we started melding together, ta-da, our various solo campaigns into one. Hey, I was just regaling about my weekend activities while you were away. Welcome back, Sid.
Thanks. So you mentioned you did 4E solo?
Yes, I did actually. I ran myself through a gladiator campaign, so it was a simple me in a big room or whatever, and I would as one singular character, and I would just use my XP budget as outlined in the rules to develop an encounter for me and throw me into an arena, and then I had a certain kind of uh method in play for if I got through so many fights without having to take a long rest, that counted as a milestone for me, that kind of thing. It was a ton of fun. I took a character from first level to 10th level, I think, in that way, and it was actually a lot of fun. Um, Even in that, I found the counter status effects, stuff like that, various powers to be a bit much to juggle, even with a single character. So even in that phase, I kind of saw where it could be a really tedious experience with the right/wrong group of players at your table. Did you have any experience with 4E?
No, that's the only edition I've got no experience with, and I'd love to. I can't find the books for cheap enough because I already know that I'm gonna have a hard time selling my group on playing it, but I never
Wait,
considered doing solo.
hold up. I'm having a moment here. I need to rewind. You're telling me you can't find 4E books cheap enough? What do they cost? $2?
Well, not in my used bookstores that I check every once in a while.
Oh, wow. God, it seems like well, again, I'm showing my age a little bit, but I remember people on YouTubers talking about, oh, hey, I just picked up a bunch of 4E books like super cheap. They were selling them for like $5 or something. People were just getting rid of them. But I guess now that the all those books have found homes, and uh, nobody's willing to give them up now. So, pardon my shock to hear that 4E is actually kind of teetering into collector's item territory.
Now, full disclosure, I haven't looked online, which is, so I haven't looked that hard. It'll be like I'm
Okay,
at a
okay.
convention and I'm walking around the booths and someone will have a 4E book. I'm like, I don't know if I'm, $90
All
on
right,
a
I was
game, but
about to blame the Mandela effect. Like 4E is suddenly way more popular than I thought it was.
no, I'm sure that they're actually super cheap online, like you remember. I'm just a
Okay,
bum.
okay. But that's perfectly fair, and I resonate with that. That's a valid defense in my book.
My only
Yeah,
time I
and
look, I'm at a convention and I see someone selling books. I'm like, oh, I wonder if they have 4E. And then I don't find it, or I don't find it for a price I'm willing to pay. And I'm like, oh, I've forgotten about it already.
it was 20 years ago or more now, but yeah, Cyrus is saying he can never find any game books in used stores. And it's rare, but it does happen. My wife found me a near mint condition, like the binding still cracked on it, first edition Dungeon Master's Guide at the thrift store one day for like
Nice.
$1. I mean, again, this was, you know, 20, 25 years ago. It was still quite a steal, compared to even today.
It was, I think, 2 years ago. I was at a real small convention somewhere in Alabama, and someone had really high quality first edition books, and I didn't have physical copies yet. And they were way more expensive than fifth edition books. Still got them,
Wow.
but it was that same thing. Like the spine still cracked, like really good condition.
Nice.
So as a table, we made a decision to go in and buy the set for our group library.
Nice. Nice. Love it. So now what does the next year hold for you personally and for the IFRPG? Like, if you can speak for the organization to a degree, like what, since the organization is kind of looking to grow, does that have a requisite recruitment plan? Is there a planned network hammered out for a year in advance of what tournaments are going to be where?
Yeah, so the big tournaments are decided.
Okay.
And then qualifiers tend to have a lot less of a projection on them. It's just because there's not a whole lot of money in gaming as a player. If you're selling product, maybe you're making something, but probably you're not. So it's like an IFRPG pro DM is going to be going to a convention, and he decides he's going to run a game, and he'll look for recruits that way. So it's a really organic at the bottom. But then regionals, nationals, and the championship, those are set in stone the year in advance.
Okay. So they know where they're going to happen and what's going to be happening at those things. And are they spread out? Is it a mix of small and large conventions, or is it do they mostly target large conventions for the exposure and the target rich environment? I guess it would be the best term for it.
So it is a mix. It's because, again, it's just if you're going to a convention and you're a pro, you're allowed to do recruiting. You're not required to. You're some of the bigger conventions we do specifically target, but as members go to smaller local conventions, they'll run and do recruiting there. And as far as the plans, so right now we're in the off season. The new season starts January 1st, or the first game weekend in January. I don't remember the exact date, but it's after the new year. We've already made the decision. We're dropping the Odyssey system. It was fun, but it's still under development, and I'm not going to say anything bad about it because it's a really fun system, but just dealing with the constant changes was a little bit cumbersome. So we want to do a system that's already done and printed, and we've made the vote. It passed. Tiny D10 is going to be our indie game of 2026.
I'd like to think I had some small hand in that, featuring him on the show. That's just me wanting to take credit, I mean.
Well, I mean, I was able to. I was one of the people leading the charge, and so we were able to use your interview with him as like introducing more of the system. Plus, he has it available for free on his website, so people could peruse it without any sort of commitment. And now we're all buying physical copies for at least all the DMs are buying physical copies for the 2026 season.
I got mine on the shelf.
Yeah, I've got one with me right now. I travel with it. It's the only RPG book I travel with.
And it's light. It is so light. I mean, you really can't go wrong with it. It's flexible. It's fast. I've used it for a couple of solo sessions. It's really got a lot going for it. And I know Patty's Parlor has played it too on one of their, darn it, Roll With It sessions, Rolling the Bone sessions. God, what do they call their Sunday gaming sessions where they try out games? It'll come to me in a flash in a moment. But yeah.
And
that's right. Tiny D10.
Some of the guys are planning on doing an actual play of Tiny D10. They're going to be running through a pre-written module. It's a third-party 5e thing, so it's got to be converted for Tiny D10. But they're planning on recording that. So that's something that's planned for next year. It's still in the planning phase, so I couldn't tell you when that's going to be.
All right. All
That should be
right.
pretty
That's
fun.
great.
And then, as I mentioned earlier, I went big, and a few of the other guys did too, in backing Broken Empires. So when that gets released, it will come up for a vote of if that is going to be a replacement for the main campaigns instead of 5e.
Now, are
I gotta
you
get.
an avid solo player yourself?
I have done solo RPGs.
Okay.
I That's actually how I kind of started doing RPGs on Twitter. Was I was doing some solo RPGs. I was wondering who else was into it. I found Trevor Duvall. I was like, oh, that's awesome. This guy's doing it at a much higher level than me, because I was trying to do 5e solo, and it didn't feel the same. So I was like, well, what? Maybe there's a better game for solo play. And I found one of Crossface's videos, and I think I went onto Twitter to argue with him about doing it wrong.
What, you argue with somebody online?
No, I
I
really
find that hard to
appreciate.
believe. Find that hard to believe. It just never happens. I don't see that at all. I most definitely did not see that today. Definitely did not see that today.
No, I don't mean to over criticize, which I have a tendency to do.
Never.
Some of it's
There's the thought.
committing the bit. But yeah, I went to maybe have a discussion would be a better way to have approached it, but I think I got a little antagonistic. Like, oh, you did this part wrong, this part was wrong. And he responded and he was super cordial. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe I should stop being so aggressive. But I found other people to fight with immediately after that, so it was fine.
Oh, good, good. Do you thrive on that? Is that your thing? I don't like arguing with people online. So when I see something I disagree with, I tend to just let it go on by.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is so much fun.
Well, it's one of the things I've seen many of the arguments that you've gotten into, and that's one of the things I said. I think we're going to have this guy on the show today. I got to hear what he's got to say.
You know,
Yeah,
I'll
and
see
Crossface is a good dude, man. I'm in his Discord server talking about grappling and stuff like that. There's a lot to be learned in there if you're interested in such things.
Yeah, Crossface is awesome. But I'll see R-Dubs post something and I get excited before I even read it because I know it's wrong. And
why are you always picking on R-Dubs? R-Dubs is my boy, man.
R-Dubs is great. I like R-Dubs. I would consider R-Dubs to be a friend. But he's wrong at RPGs constantly, which gives me something to argue about with someone who's not going to just get sad and go home with their ball.
All right. All right. So what would it be like to play with you and R-Dubs at the same table?
Well, R-Dubs was the very first person in the BroSR that we extended an offer to. And he's the only person who has not officially declined from the BroSR. So maybe one day I'll get in that game with R-Dubs and it'll be fantastic. I hope he does well. We've also extended the offer to Crossface, but he's super busy right now. We've got to start being more, proactive and extending the offers, but we're pretty busy ourselves.
I understand. And, you don't want to go spreading it around all over the place because then it just becomes cheap. But, I do know you might invite, I don't know, a goblin. And yep, thank you, Crossface. It's been awesome, man. Love having you here. And Matt, glad to see you, man. You picked I like to think on some level I brought you out of retirement. I like to think I hosted an event that motivated you to come back. So have any of you guys had any experience with the 2024 rules? And here we go again.
I have no idea why it keeps dropping like that.
Mercury
It's
is
the
retrograde.
browser.
That's what happens. That's the
It's
thing.
the solar flares.
It's solar flares. Mercury is retrograde. Demons, just demons, you know. But yeah, Goblin King should get tapped. I mean, so you know, just saying if you're looking for the best. I mean, you know, and this is me being humble. Now, when it comes to the 5th edition rules, since that's the bulk of your experience, one of the things that I am interested in is how you have seen the different tiers of play and what that experience is like. Since they so blatantly lay it out as like, you know, 1st to 5th is the small town hero, the 6th to 10th is the you're becoming heroes of the kingdom, and then you know the 11th to 15th is the you're ruling the kingdom. How does the game progress? In older editions, that sort of thing was much more explicitly built out into building a castle, in the getting followers at your name level, those sorts of conventions. What is the growth arc of a 5th edition character?
So I think that the way they lay it out is pretty accurate to play. And this is going to be one of the more controversial things I can say, as you know, 5e's greatest defender. I think that the people who made the game made something better than they themselves realized, and the full potential of what they released. I've had several conversations with Mike Merles, and you know, he's one of those, the game's good till level 7 and the math falls apart after that, which was disappointing to hear because I think the game gets better after level 7. And
In what
sure,
ways?
levels 1 through 7, you don't really have that many abilities, maybe compared to, you know, 1st edition you do, but relatively speaking within its own system, you're pretty limited in what you can do from levels 1 to 7. Once you get past that, that's when your options start to really open up, both in character design and what you can do with your bonus action, the selection of spells to choose from. Fighters get a lot to pick from at that point. So running high level games, and I mean 12 and above, is one of the easiest things to do, because you can just throw the kitchen sink at the party. And if they fail, you can be pretty confident it's their fault.
So you got to be trying to die at that level.
It's you still have to be good. Like if I throw, just to give an example of one of the games I've done, if I throw Mecha Tiamat backed up by an army of 40k squats at you, I don't have to feel bad if you die, because you have every opportunity to find a way to win or escape.
Okay.
And so balance isn't important anymore. You can be as ridiculous and over the top as you want to be, and you should be. You should be putting 100 minis on the table, because that's what those characters are meant to do.
Wow.
They've taken in older editions, you would have a lot of hirelings and henchmen and so on and so forth, and you'd be taking them along for like the big fights. In 5th edition, instead of doing that, they've consolidated all of that power into a single character. And that's where one of the big valid criticisms come of people not liking it, is like, oh, well, they're superheroes. Yes, at high level they are. Levels 1 through 7, not so much. But level 12, 15, 20, yeah, they're demigod superheroes, but that's okay, because they should be fighting Tiamat and Orcus in a tag team wrestling match.
Okay, right. Yeah, the scale of the challenges. I want to rewind back to a notion that you just threw out there is back. So starting around that 12th, 13th level that you're saying, challenge balancing the encounters goes right out the window. You don't even need those challenge ratings and budgets anymore because the characters are powerful and flexible enough to handle anything that you can throw at them. Even if they can't defeat it, they should be able to get away at least, right? Is
Yes.
that's
Yeah. As soon
really
as they level
interesting.
up to, as soon as you say you guys have leveled up to level 8, throw CR out the window, pick your favorite monsters that you've been dying to run, and throw it at them.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Okay. So that is such a fundamentally old school thing. Anybody who's played any of the BX stuff that knows that, you got those dreaded random encounters in the dungeon, right? But those are sneakily kind of tooled to your level and difficulty level. And then once you go out into the wilderness and start your hex crawling, all of a sudden you're using the wilderness encounter tables. And same goes for AD&D first edition. Once you start using those wilderness encounter tables, you can easily run into things that will chew you up for breakfast with no problem. You're a bunch of second, third level characters. You run across a dragon, and that the dice just do that to you sometimes. It is up to you to survive that through wits, hiding, cunning, begging for your life if you got something worth offering. That's such a neat idea that is still in the DNA of the game.
Yeah, and level 8 is when it is. So levels 1 through 7, to my reckoning, feel like a tutorial. You're learning how to play the game. Then you get to level 8, and it's like, now this is where the real game starts.
Okay.
If you haven't learned how to play the game, and however long it took you to reach level 8, you're probably never going to learn it. It's not the game for you. But at level 8, it's like now you can just go. Like, get rid of CR. Don't even think about it. You go, oh, there's a lich because I rolled that there's a lich, and he has 100 skeletons and 20 vampires or whatever, and you just run it.
Neat. Now, I'm not as up on 5th edition resources, but for people who want those kind of CR be damned, give me the random encounters. Where do those resources exist for 5e? Are those in the DMG? Or are those other books like Tasha's the Book of Everything?
So the DMG 2014 has one little blurb about random encounter table. I'll give you an example for, I think, like an elven forest or something like that. And there's an owl bear on there, and that's the big scary one. But then it says use this as an example to make a region appropriate encounter list. So you are expected to make your own encounter list.
Right. I saw a similar cop out, and I remember it from 3rd edition. It was they did not give you random encounter lists, and they were also, I don't remember them being a particularly big thing in 4th edition either, because it was similar. You had the XP budget, spend it to make something. Challenge rating was very much built into it from beginning to end.
Now, that said, Xanathar's has those tables.
Okay.
So
what are the 5e essential books in your opinion? Like, I only have the 3 core books. I got the player, DMG, and monster manual. What are the books that make 5e the well-oiled machine that you enjoy?
I consider Xanathar's to be DMG 2.
Okay.
And I've recently found out that that's not an accident. Like, that's how they were designing it. They just didn't call it that. And they timed it with the release of a Pathfinder game to try to like eat up that market space. Tasha's is player handbook 2. And then Volo's guide is the other really essential one. So I think there are 6 essential books. You can have a great game with the original 3, but once you incorporate the tools in Xanathar's and the options in Tasha's and then the better monsters from Volos, that's
Right.
where the game really starts to work for me.
Right, right. And movie guy John is chiming in saying he uses those in his 5e play. And also shout out movie guy John. Glad to see you, man. We're going to be playing in a first edition game coming up here soon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We're doing it with Scudder for Mike and his Discord. So I'll let you know how that pans out for me. My character is Harold the Handsome. And hopefully he'll still be handsome by the end of it.
Sir.
No, I'm sorry. I kind of talked over what you were saying before. I was asking you about solo play and your degree of involvement with that. You were saying that that was how you ended up going after Crossface about something or other. But what's your experience in the solo arena, and how did you come to that? Did you pick that up because of Trevor?
No, I found Trevor because I was looking into solo play.
Got it.
And so I tried running 5e solo, and it doesn't have great native tools.
No, it doesn't.
So I was wondering, like, is anybody doing this that can give me like a better tool, or maybe even a better system that's geared towards solo play? And I ran across Crossface's YouTube video. I ran across Trevor, who had just started the show. He was on like episode 2 or 3.
Yeah. Okay. Ironically, that's when I started delving in around the time I got into the solo RPG community on YouTube. And I had been in it a few months or maybe a year when Trevor started his show. So I was watching him from day one. Big fan, total backer, as deeper than I should have, even with back in the Broken Empire.
Same. Solo play was not for me.
Okay.
Because I felt like I was writing a book more than I was playing a game.
Yes. I have that experience too. And I experienced that primarily if I try to play on a computer, if I try to do a solo game on a computer or electronic device, any sort of typing. I find I switch into writer brain, and before I know it, I'm like just rolling along there. It turns into a writing exercise very easily. When I'm solo playing, I tend to like the manual, the tactile, the dice, the notebooks, the index cards, all that kind of stuff. I just love doing that stuff. So that when I do solo play, that's why I tend to do handwriting and stuff, which is also why I don't produce videos and after action reports of them too.
Yeah, I did it manually with set at the kitchen table. I rolled dice. I wrote down with pen and paper. And it wasn't an unenjoyable experience, but I felt more like I was writing than like I was gaming. I think I've got to have, for me personally, I've got to have that contention against something that I'm unaware of.
Yeah. Well, and that's why for solo play, like it relies a lot on games and systems, environments that use a lot of random tables, like we were discussing for emergent systems. So, like running 5e with just a core book solo would be a lot more challenging. You at least need the Mythic GM emulator or some kind of Oracle to, But if I had all, like we were discussing, the random tables from those other 3 books, and the resource from there, it sounds like it would be a lot more of a workable experience.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be more workable using a emulator and running with Xanathars. But yeah, 5e core books by themselves did not work for me solo. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm just not a solo gamer. I'll try it again eventually.
Well, I also will tell you from my personal experience, rules light is the way to go for solo games, because unless you just love the heaviness and crunchiness of the game that you're playing, solo play is best done with the rules light system, because then you are mostly concentrating all your mental energy on the game and what your character is doing and what's happening, rather than grappling with any sort of math or logistics to do with the sheet. And the Pun King is in the house. He says that YouTube topic needs to turn up the volume. It's so low we can't hear it. This is my
His
friend.
name does
ladies
not
and
lie.
gentlemen. Yes. Oh man. Yes. It's a shame. We've had see that. Look at that. The Pun King made my whole phone system collapse. My camera is gone. That's how bad the pun was. It made the support arm of my apparatus collapse. Pardon me. All right. So, what else have you got going on in your gaming world? We've talked a lot about the organization and the tournaments and stuff like that. We've talked at length about 5e in 2024. What are some exciting thing? What is exciting you in the gaming realm right now? Ditching me. That's what's exciting him in the gaming realm now. Every time I get on a little bit of a roll here, there he goes. How's everybody doing tonight? Talk to me. You'll be here all week. It just feels like all week, man. It just feels like all week. Tip your waitress. Wait a minute. Let me do this. That's better. I like that better. I don't like that clear one. One thing about Restream is I wish they would remember the settings in between my streams so I don't have to redo stuff like that. I'm beginning to think you don't like me, Scyth.
I absolutely like you. I am very frustrated that there's some sort of gremlin who every 15 minutes decides to crash my browser.
Lax, good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping by. No, man, yeah. I am, of course, just pulling your leg off grid. Glad to see you, sir. But yeah, what I was building up to was what has got you excited in the great gaming world right now?
So I think that Wizards of the Coast won the OGL scandal. And I think that selling as good as they claim they are. However, I think that those scandals and those missteps are going to cost them market share while also increasing the visibility of gaming because everyone loves a scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it's doing is it's opening up breathing room for these other games. As Joe Schmo, who doesn't play RPGs, isn't really going to care about the OGL, but he might hear about Dungeons and Dragons because of it and then come into the hobby. And then other people who do care about the OGL, they're jumping ship to other games. So it creates this potential to have less of a monolith in the industry, even if they're still successful, because I don't think they're going away. As much as I wish that they
I don't
would.
think there's any reason to think that either.
But their missteps in the trust of the community is creating opportunities for guys like Tiny D10 to, hey, maybe you should try this. Also, I think that their failure to expand 5e and just kind of like reboot it is going to increase the 5e fatigue. And I'm going to be a heretic to the 5e players out there, but I have 5e fatigue. Before they started messing up with the OGL and everything, that was part of the reason I started looking at other systems. I was like, okay, I feel like I've won this game. I don't feel like there's that much more for me to learn or master at this rule set. What else is out there? And so I'm excited about trying Broken Empires and Tiny D10. And, I would consider Castles and Crusades. I tell people they should try it because I know that it's a good product. I've played a little bit of Axe. I love that game. It's a very different feel from 5e. And it's nice to play things that aren't 5e. And of course, what I'm most excited about is that I've been given the honor of playtesting Molotovs and Mojitos for going on like 3 years now. And that game is getting closer and closer to completion. And it's going to be exciting to see what all the feedback turns into and how that's received when it gets released.
Are you guys planning a Kickstarter to go along with it?
I believe that they are eventually.
Mm-hmm.
The game is getting close to a second level of playtesting. Right now, it's almost exclusively IFRPG pros that are playtesting the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost to a point where it can be sent out and playtested by other groups in a closed test. And then after that, there'll probably be an open playtest. And then they'll pitch a Kickstarter, I'm sure.
Yeah. I see a lot. So many of the creators, when it comes time, they do the Kickstarter because it seems like that's just the accepted business model now. People almost expect it. And it's, my one experience running a Kickstarter years ago was that we were publishing a set of novels and we used the Kickstarter to cover the editing costs. It was a great value for me at that time because then I'm not out of pocket covering the editor's costs for getting the book finished and through the door, but I think in a similar way, I've heard other streamers say this recently that, the Kickstarter kind of covers the cost of producing the book, like all the art and the layout and, stuff like that. And then once they actually get the Kickstarter completed and get it out in the world, the profit, the gravy is coming from everything they sell after that point, it's definitely a challenging business and business model, and it is rare. You see, it's rare that many people make a living at it as their full-time gig. Spent some time comparing the incompatible 2024 versions of spells to 2014 versions of spells and laughed again at how they kept claiming it's the same version. I have heard that over and over again as well from various quarters, even people who actively, are fans of 5th edition and fans of the newer one have said, no, they're so different. It's not even fair to call it 5.5. It's so different. It's a completely new edition.
I would almost, no, not almost. I would absolutely prefer if it was a completely new edition. It's similar enough that the change are easy to forget or confuse with the old rules. And so you don't have the confidence that you remember the right rules. Well, I should speak for myself. I don't have the confidence. Like, is that a 2015 version rule or 2024 version rule? And now I'm having to go look it up, which is something I haven't had to do for years. And if it's the same edition, I shouldn't have to do that now.
Yeah. Well, and it seems kind of it's an asinine assertion to make that, it's clearly new and different. So many things are different that, I'm not even, I'm sure like 2 different characters made in the 2 different players handbook can play at the same table without too much conflict. Right. But what if that player is 7th level, like you were saying, and has a magic item from the new 2024 book and its capabilities are very different from what's in the old book? It's really sad to see it go that way. And I feel like rather than being inspired by anything other than the 50th anniversary, the 2024 books were kind of a cynical rehashing of what has come before.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I love my car analogies. The new rules, it feels like they said, okay, we're making, it's the same car. It's just like an update of the car that you know and love. And so you get the car and it looks the same. The engine runs the same, so on and so forth. And then you open the door and the steering wheel's on the other side. And it's just like, okay, this seemed really, really familiar. And even though I know how this car's supposed to work, everything is backwards, left to right. And it's really difficult to drive this car now.
I can absolutely see that. Yeah, I can't help but wonder if they really were what they were really had in mind with the virtual tabletop that just got canceled, the Sigil. It it seems obvious that they're trying to go more of the MMO, they want a monthly subscription kind of route. Um, and frankly, I don't blame them. I even think that with the proper development effort, that could be where they make the bulk of their money in the future. They want to go from, you know, something where you buy the books and then just keep playing to that lifestyle brand and that subscription service. But I guess that where they really fail is outdoing the actual VTTs that already exist.
Yeah, and they abandoned that for a reason. I never got to play the, you know, fancy whiz bang one that had released.
Mhm.
But I think they're going to go with like the gem model, right? So before they only made money if you bought a book or if you bought merchandise that was branded. But with the D&D Beyond subscription, you're more likely to just keep paying the monthly fee over and over again, even if you don't play a game that month, because
Yes.
maybe you will next month. And so whether you
Yeah.
play or not, now they're getting your money. When before you actually had to do something for them to make a profit off of you.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I don't know. I can kind of see that as part of that subscription service. That's, everything's a subscription now. But I could see it being a big success if it can provide real value to the players. Like if in some way it could and would enable one huge living campaign all across all the planes, something to that degree. I even see that possibility with the AI dungeon mastering and stuff that they're trying to implement. It wouldn't do it well to start with, but I could see real potential in it.
Yeah, I think whatever they try to do, they're going to fumble it because the people in charge of the brand don't actually care about it.
Yes,
And so, they had
that
some
is
really
true.
talented people. Whether you like Mike Merles or not, he did care about D&D. He still cares about D&D. But the people who replaced him don't. They're like Xbox Live or something like that, and they're there to
Yeah.
sell you a subscription, get your money, get profit, drive up the stock prices, and cash out.
Yeah, and it is absolutely it feels that way. It really does feel that way. But I guess in so many ways, like you said, I got a ton of respect for Mike Merles, but at the end of the day, he wasn't making all the calls. He wasn't calling all the shots. He had to appease the people who were writing the checks ultimately. And that same, I guess that was one of the things that made me feel still kind of divorced from it in the fifth edition days. I'm always been a big fan of the independent things, and there was a time when Dungeons and Dragons was the indie hit. It was the underground thing. That's why everybody loves Stranger Things. It harkens back to the days when it was underground and cool, man.
Yeah, and I think fifth edition benefited a lot from Stranger Things and Critical Role and so on and so forth, which is no one hasn't said that, right? Everyone agrees with that. But I also think
Yeah.
that Critical Role switched to Dungeons and Dragons because they also benefited from Dungeons and Dragons as opposed to Pathfinder. Like there was a brand recognition symbiosis there that helped both groups out. But that's gone now because Critical Role has released like 2 or 3 of their own systems. And
Well, and still though with Critical Role, they ditched their own homegrown game, whatever the Dagger Fart, something like that. I don't know. But they ditched their system and they're doing their new campaign, the one that the Brendan the Mulligan guy is running. He's running D&D using the new rules for them. So I think you nailed it right on the head. Is they benefit from the recognition of D&D as much as D&D benefits from them. And like we said, it seemed the OGL debacle that they tried to pull off seemed targeted at Critical Role, if nothing else, just because they're the only people making that kind of cash off of D&D that aren't that don't own the brand, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was only like Critical Role and who was it? The Black Flag is the system they're making.
I'm
I
not
think
familiar
they were
with that
doing
one. The only other
They
live
made-
play group I follow at all is Glass Cannon. I really find them entertaining. So when it comes to live play, when I'm craving that, those are the guys I choose to watch, and they just started a Shadow Dark campaign, which is shaping up really nicely. I like that a lot.
Corridor Digital did an actual play. I loved it. It got me to buy a subscription, and then they didn't do another season, and I'm just perpetually disappointed.
Nah, I can dig that. I can dig that. All right, we have hit the 2-hour time mark, Sid. Just flew on by.
Thanks for dealing with my crashes.
Hey, you know, it was all just part of the show. It was all just part of the show. I mean, I must say, because you know, I'm an amazing host. You gave me a chance to show off my awesomeness and covering it and bringing you back on gracefully. You know, so really, thank you for doing that.
Anytime, and thank you for having me. It was an absolute blast.
Awesome, man. Okay, but before I let you go, is there any place people need to find you? We got your handle for Twitter. Is there no other social media or websites that we need to plug?
I try very hard not to be found anywhere else.
Very good, sir. All right, Sid, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Jawin with Jack. Join us next Monday evening, same time slot, and we will amaze you again.